Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're watching Korean girls try American barbecue. Let's get into it.
So American barbecue is still a fairly new thing in Korea, and the majority of Koreans still haven't tried it. So we not only want to see their reactions for the first time, but we want more Koreans to become aware of what American barbecue is really all about. Currently, there are only a handful of places in Korea that do American barbecue the right way. So I proposed the idea for this video to a place that many people consider the best American barbecue in Korea, and they've agreed to help us out.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that there was actually American barbecue in Korea itself. It makes sense. It's a pretty renowned staple in America and is a particular niche cuisine here, and others might be interested in it. It's also interesting that Korean folks are also kind of famous for their own versions of barbecue and things like fried chicken, which are also Southern staples. So it'll be interesting to see their perspective on this.
They're going to try the three main staples of American barbecue: pulled pork, brisket, and ribs. So pulled pork is from the upper shoulder area, also known as the Boston butt. It's smoked for 8 to 10 hours, then pulled apart, hence the name pulled pork. Here they serve a non-traditional style with citrus marinade, which they call a Cuban-style pulled pork.
I'm actually appreciating how they gave some background on the food that they're about to try. It's very informative so far.
오, 와,
They're pretty excited already.
언니 냄새가 너무 좋아. 왠지 덜 익어 보이는 것 같은데? 아닌가? 약간 핏기가 있는 것 같은데요? 아닌가? 다 익은 거예요.
They're worried about the color. So there's definitely some red portions of the barbecue. I believe this is based off of the spices, but I'm not an expert on this.
우와! 태어나서 처음 먹어본 맛이야. 되게 특별한 향이 있는 것 같아요.
맞아. 약간 새콤한 느낌도 있네요.
보기에는 기름기가 많은 것 같은데 먹어보면 또 기름기 별로 이렇게 오일리하지 않아요.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So there seems to be a mix of English and actually Korean in this video. So feel free to pause at any point if you want to see some of their reactions. So far, basically, they're interested in the flavors that are coming out through the barbecue itself. They're also surprised that it's not really oily or anything else like that. These are usually cooked for a very long time. I think they even mentioned that earlier on, like 8 to 10 hours. So usually, it's not like you get a big chunk of fat. I think usually it gets rendered and ideally kind of absorbed throughout the meat. And also, there's usually a lot of dry seasonings on the meat when they prep it before it actually gets barbecued and then during the barbecue timing itself. So I think that helps balance out the oiliness in the meat when they actually eat it.
생긴 거가 좀 뭔가 이게 안 익은 듯한 느낌이 들어서 얘가
Still seem to be concerned about whether it's cooked or not.
색깔이 와우 진짜 먹으면
Yeah, so they're referencing this is the smoke ring. So this is a color that comes from the way that it is cooked, and I think from the materials that are used in cooking. So it kind of gives it this coloration. But one of the important parts is it would be very weird. You can sort of see it here in this image, but the discoloration happens on the edge of the meat, not in the middle of the meat. That's one of the clear distinctions where undercooked meat is pink in the middle and then usually brown and cooked on the outsides where it gets the heat source from. And so this is the opposite. So that's how you can more easily tell that this is a coloring, not a undercooked issue.
근데 진짜 못 먹어본 맛이라서 신기한데 원래 저는 좀 뭐라고 해야 되지? 처음 먹어보는 거는 못 먹거든요. 좀 두려움이 있어요.
별 10점 만점에 몇 점?
6점.
저는 한국인 입맛에는 8점 정도?
Okay, first ratings out the gate. So an 8 and a 6, that's pretty decent overall. I think it'll also depend on how into like red meat you are. Usually, classically for American barbecue, it's pretty light on vegetables. And so sometimes you'll get like pickles or something like that on the side, or you'll have like baked beans or something else or coleslaw as a side item. It seems like they're mostly just getting the meat itself at this point. I'm seeing a small dish, but maybe that's just like barbecue sauce or something like that. And so again, it's pretty meat forward. It has an interesting taste. It also depends on how into meat you are in general.
맞긴 한데 살짝 한국인들이 먹기에는 시큼한 그런 맛이 있어서 많이 나진 않는데 이게 한국인들이 그렇게
Interesting. So they're saying that Koreans are not that into sour foods. I'm also curious what exactly is giving them this sour taste. Sometimes meat can be like marinated in like vinegar or something like that. Another one could be from the sauces that they use. Sometimes like barbecue sauce or other sauces can actually have vinegar mixed into them. So that might be giving it a sort of sour taste. That would be my immediate reaction. Usually, classically, you have some of the meats either dry aged or marinated, and then you smoke them. Usually just with like salt, black pepper, sometimes some other additional spice or two. But I'm kind of curious how sour this is for their palate. I personally don't really consider American barbecue to be sour in and of itself. Maybe the barbecue sauce that is added on top is, though.
대중적으로 좋아하긴 좀 힘들지 않을까요? 좀 살짝 시큼한 맛은?
비주얼적으로는 좀 별로였는데 맛이 저한테는 맛있었던 것 같아요. 좀 더 부드럽고 그래서 한 8.5?
저는 5.5.
Wow, getting a little bit more extreme. 8.5 and 5.5. So it is definitely tender. I think that is one of the nicest parts about American barbecues because it's cooked for so long. It's usually very, very tender meat by the time you get into it. 5.5, that's actually not that fantastic. I'm also not sure how polite these individuals are trying to be. So like 5.5 is maybe like I really don't like it, but I don't want to offend anyone who's giving me this food. So it could be lower. I guess we'll see their types of reactions later on in the video.
보이는 게 더 중요한 것 같아요. 소스가
The visuals are what's impacting them. So it didn't seem like they particularly disliked the meat itself. They just didn't like how it looked, which it does look kind of different from other meat if you've never seen anything like it before.
생긴 거 소스가 맛없게 생겼는데요.
6.5, 7. I think we're around the 6.5 mark in general. I think we've had some 8s. We had that 5.5. So I think 6.5, give or take, is the average that we're seeing so far, which is a general kind of like so far, but nothing crazy.
근데 되게 맛있어요.
와 진짜
이런 맛이구나.
So now they're adding bread into this. So classically, American barbecue is served with like Texas toast or like a slice of toast on the side, usually just to help you out. Also, like if some things are spicy, they can also help balance out flavors, things like that. So that is pretty classic to have a slice or two of just like standard white American bread or Texas toast with it. Oh, these seem to be like rolls from what these people are having. I don't know if this is as classic. I'm not from the southern region of America where this is predominant. I don't know if like these sort of butter rolls are the go-to bread that goes with barbecue, at least not from what I recall. But if any of you know, feel free to post in the comments below and tell me how it's actually served.
훨씬 맛있어.
Okay, so there seems to be an improvement so far for them.
지금 저는 10점.
10점.
전 10점.
10점.
진짜.
Wow, 10 out of 10. Is this just the bread itself, or is this the combination? I'm going to have to double check that.
지금 저는 10점.
10점.
전
Okay, so they said as a slider. So this is meat inside the bread, 10 out of 10. Wow, this is interesting. I'm also not sure how much bread Koreans eat in their standard dishes. Is bread just a staple for them that like actually completes the meal? I'm not sure.
10점.
10점.
진짜로.
아 이게 이 빵 자체가 굉장히 잘 어울리네. 매일 먹고 싶어.
7점? 훨씬 맛있어요. 빵이랑 거.
9.2?
Wow, these are jumping up quite a bit. These are, so far, it seems to have gone up like a couple points. Like we seem to be in like the 7 to 8 range right now as the kind of average going forward. Let's see it. I believe there's another 2 left.
되게 디테일.
막 야채나 이런 거 있잖아. 샐러드 같은 거 같이 곁들여서 나오면 훨씬 더 좋아할 것 같아.
그리고 샌드위치처럼 나오는 게 좀 더 익숙한 느낌.
I see. So they're saying because it's in a sandwich form, it's a little bit more familiar. Also, here we're getting to see a little bit more about what they're actually eating and what they had access to. So it does seem like they had the meat and then some type of barbecue sauce, which could be very sour, depending on which style they do. And they have like a few shredded vegetables in there as well, which seems to be making it more familiar. And again, the addition of vegetables might also be helping them kind of counteract all that meat and might be something that's more familiar to them.
Unlike in Korea, brisket is a highly prized cut of meat in America. In fact, it's the pride of American barbecue because it's the most challenging to cook and perfect. It's a tough piece of meat that usually needs to be smoked for 10 to 12 hours in order for it to tenderize.
Yeah, so this is one of the most classic barbecue. Like when I think of American barbecue, I think brisket predominantly, because this is where, as he mentioned, usually barbecue or pitmasters highlight how good they are at barbecue in general with something like a brisket because it is a little bit more finicky, because it takes more attention to detail. And I think usually in the cooking process, because it is more dry, that you have to like repeatedly add moisture to it for it to not dry out. And so it's sort of like the hardest version of American barbecue to my knowledge. And so this is something that they actually use to distinguish themselves from other barbecue masters and is one of the more luxurious pieces of American barbecue that exists. Like if you go to a barbecue shop, this will probably be one of the pricier items, I think, again, due to how labor intensive it is.
세 번째로 브리스켓.
완전 맛있어.
브리스켓.
아니 캔만 듣고 고양이 거에
Cat would be a whole other show entirely. They thought he said cat and not brisket. And so luckily, I don't know of any American dishes that include cat in them. No cats were harmed in the making of at least my video. I'm not sure about theirs, but probably not either.
브리스켓? 브리스켓.
우와 그래
이게 미국식
그치,
바베큐죠.
내
제가
처음엔,
Yeah, see, so this is what they were expecting too when they had their initial reaction. So they also seem to imagine this, which I think is also the go-to classic American barbecue.
처음에 생각했던 게
와, 이
이거였어.
두께를 봐봐요. 오 마이 갓.
두께가
와, 진짜.
내 엄지 손가락 굵기.
It's also fun that they just said, oh my God, as standard English in the mix of all their standard Korean.
보다 되고 있다.
나무 같은 생각. 나무 같은 생각.
That is actually interesting because I think they actually refer to the outside of brisket as bark because it does get that sort of solid layer. I think, again, because repeated seasonings, dry seasonings on the outside, and it sort of like caramelizes and thickens up over time, especially given how long it smokes for.
지금 시작할까? 네, 빨리. 맛있어. 너무 맛있어 보이는데?
오 색깔이 너무 좋다. 전체적으로 여자들이 되게 좋아할 만한 단맛이 좀 많이.
And it seems to have more of a sweet sauce in this one. So again, it's unclear what they had given them before, but immediate reactions while they're tasting seems to be a little bit more positive.
뭐지?
아, 또 식감이 너무 좋으니까. 저는 비계 이 느낌 되게 좋아하거든요.
아니 난 비계가 너무 신기한 게 진짜 싫어.
Eating fat in brisket is like one of the few applications that is actually good, in my opinion, as they're mentioning, because sometimes when you eat fat in other dishes or meat, it can be sort of tough to chew or chewy and kind of has a weird texture to it. It's much softer in this format, again, because I believe it's starting to render down. And so it's usually a sort of in between, sort of soft, as well as the rest of the meat.
근데 너무 부드럽고 살살 녹아요 진짜. 이거 완전
스테이크 먹는 것 같은 좀 훈제향 센 스테이크 겉에
맛있어요.
That's pretty fair. It is beef brisket, so steak is standardly beef. So smoked steak sounds pretty reasonable. I do think it is very tender versus most steaks, unless even from a texture kind of like filet mignon or something like that. It's sort of pulls apart, so to speak. It's almost like falling apart by the time you eat it. It isn't the same standard texture you would expect from a steak where you actually have to like cut into it and chew quite a bit.
이거 발 식감 많잖아요.
저는 6.9네. 저도 약간 좀 퍽퍽했어요 저는.
6. Yeah, it can be dry, which is where it's often served with barbecue sauces. And also when you go to get it, I think they even try to ration out how much you get that has fat in it, because that can really offset that dryness. But 6 starting off a little low right now, so we'll see where the rest of them come in.
9.9.
그럼 8.5.
Wow, this group liked it so much more than the previous dish.
8점. 난 9.5.
Wow. These folks are really liking it. It's in the 9s and the 8s right now, except for that first group at 6.0.
너무 많이.
And our last item of the day, pork ribs. The ribs are smoked for around 5 hours, then finished off with a sweet and tangy raspberry glaze.
So pork ribs are pretty classic American barbecue. I think ribs are also more prevalent throughout America, in my opinion. Brisket, as an example, is something that is much more rare because of how hard it is and usually the style of cooking that goes along with it. Whereas pork ribs in this style obviously would be much more in that same vein of the other American barbecue that they've highlighted and tried out so far. But pork ribs, I think, are more ubiquitous throughout America, whereas like beef brisket in that barbecue fashion generally is in the South or sort of niche restaurants like the one that they're going to that you can go to once in a while, but that'll be the only place you'll actually get it. And it'll just be like one restaurant, maybe for multiple cities in a particular area. It won't be as ubiquitous as like pork ribs, which you could maybe get from any standard restaurant that has American food at it.
오. 우와.
She is so excited about this one.
대박. 내가 좋아하는 스타일이야.
Wow, this is the exact kind of food she likes. I'm not sure if she has ribs in some other form. Are there Korean ribs? I don't think I've been familiar with that in the past.
그죠? 언니 갑시다. 그래 가자. 손 씻고 왔다. 오.
She was getting serious. She was like, I gotta get ready for this messy meal that's about to happen.
오. 와 진짜 대박이다. 우와.
이 색상 봐 색상.
먹어보려고요?
Wow, did a person just come off screen to try to participate in the tasting?
못 참겠어.
이거 자를 수가 없는데.
빨간 거 새로운 분.
Wow, they really did. This is the makeup artist that just was like, I can't keep watching these people eat this barbecue without me trying any of it. That's actually pretty fun.
잘리네?
이거 어떻게,
대박.
이거 어떻게 잘리지?
어머 하나 더 왔어.
하나 더 왔어요.
립이 어떻게 이렇게 중간에 잘려요 이게?
10점. 아니 20점, 100점.
20 out of 10, 100 out of 10. Wow, she's so excited about this.
맛있다. 미국 사람들 좋겠다. 한국에 이런 거 좀 많이 팔았으면 좋겠어.
맞아. 이런 좀 특별한 그런 맛.
I appreciate like the 5-second rule, though they might have had a 6-second rule. I might have missed that portion. but it's okay. It was just on the table. It's not like she dropped it on the floor or anything.
너무 맛있어가지고 미국에서 이렇게 떨어지는 거 먹어도 돼요?
여기 한국이잖아요.
Yeah, it would be totally fine to eat food off of the table. I think it depends on the setting that you're at. Obviously, if you're at fine dining or something like that, it'd be a little bit more frowned upon, but usually the only place that it would be questionable would be like if it's on the floor. On the table, I think you're totally all set in America.
양념이요? 틀려도 돼요? 과일 들어갔어요? 무화과? 아닌가?
어떻게 알아?
아니래.
여기 보면은 기름기 많잖아. 한번 먹어볼게. 어떤지.
Pork is generally fattier. I'm sure everybody knows that who's watching this. And so obviously it's going to be less dry by default than the brisket.
오 맛있겠다. 이 부분이 진짜 맛있어 보여.
소스 맛 나요?
여기 진짜 맛있냐.
즙이 나와.
먹을래? 어때?
대박.
응.
나 이 부분 진짜 맛있는 거 같아.
응. 우리 여자들은 항상 이런 부분을 피하는데 이건 진짜 맛있어. 아니야. 있어봐. 이 부분을 먹어야 된다. 있어봐. 어때? 이번에 소리 봐.
They're so excited about this.
이거라니까. 몰랐어요. 그죠?
저도 진짜.
그럼.
Wow, she was really into it. 9.5. These are pretty high scores.
9.5?
저는 9.
100점! 진짜 맛있어요.
베스트.
Thank you for watching, and a big thank you to Manimal Smokehouse.
As he was saying, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please hit like or subscribe. I'll see you around.